Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. This time, we're really going to get into it. We're diving into some fascinating excerpts from The Epistemology of Perception by
Ooh.
Susanna Siegel and Nicholas Silins.
Yeah,
Now, it's a pretty heady paper
it is.
that tackles a question we rarely ever stop to think about.
Right.
How do we actually know
Yeah.
that what we see is real?
Yeah.
Like, we're going to be exploring the philosophy of perception. That's how our visual experiences actually give us reasons
Huh.
to believe things about the world.
It's something we do instinctively every day.
Right.
Like we open our eyes and
We just assume.
it's a reality.
It's a reality, yeah.
But how much can we actually trust what we see?
Yeah.
So by the end of this deep dive, you'll have a whole new appreciation
Oh, yeah.
for just how complex
Mm-hmm.
this seemingly simple act of seeing really is.
That's right.
So Siegel and Silins,
Yes.
they start by assuming that visual experiences
Yep.
can justify beliefs.
They can justify beliefs, but they make a key distinction.
Yes.
Experiences are not the same as beliefs.
Right.
Meaning you don't have to believe
I don't have to
everything you see,
believe everything you see.
even though, let's be honest, we usually do.
Usually do, yeah.
So I can see something
Okay.
without necessarily believing it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking of those classic optical illusions.
Yeah.
You see the lines as different lengths,
Yeah.
but you know they're not actually different.
Those are great examples.
Yeah.
Yeah, they show how we can have a visual experience without forming a belief based on it.
Right.
You experience the illusion, but you don't actually believe the lines are different length
Right.
because you have other knowledge
Right.
contradicting that perception.
Yeah. So if experiences and beliefs aren't the same thing,
Right.
how do our experiences actually give us reasons to believe things about the world?
Yeah.
What makes us go from I see it
Okay.
to I believe it?
Okay. So the authors outline two ways this can happen.
All right.
The first is called propositional justification.
Propositional justification.
And it's about the potential support an experience provides for a belief.
So even if I'm already completely sure.
Right. Evidence.
Oh.
Even if you don't change your mind because of it,
Uh-huh.
the experience still gives you a reason to believe something is true.
So even if I'm completely sure that there's mustard in my fridge,
Okay.
opening it and seeing the mustard still reinforces that belief.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The experience of seeing the mustard still provides a justification
Oh, wow.
for that belief, even if you didn't need convincing.
Hmm.
And this leads us to the second way
Yep.
experiences justify beliefs,
Okay.
which is called doxastic justification.
Okay, so propositional justification is the potential for support.
Yes.
What is doxastic justification all about?
Think of it as the aha moment. Doxastic justification is about how we actually form or update our beliefs in response to experiences.
So if I wasn't sure whether I had mustard,
Right.
but then I open the fridge,
Yeah.
see the mustard,
Yeah.
and now I believe it because I've had that visual confirmation?
Yes.
Is that doxastic justification?
Precisely. It's about how our beliefs change
Wow.
based on what we experience.
That makes sense.
The experience plays an active role
Oh.
in shaping what we believe in real time.
Okay, so far we've got experiences and beliefs as separate,
Right.
and these two ways, propositional and doxastic,
Yeah.
that experiences can support those beliefs.
Yeah.
What else does Siegel and Silins dig into?
Well, they then explore this idea of immediate justification.
Immediate justification.
This gets into whether experiences can justify beliefs on their own,
Okay.
or do we always need to rely on other beliefs as well?
So are there times when just the experience itself?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
And it ties into a major debate in philosophy called foundationalism.
Foundational?
Yeah, it asks whether there are certain beliefs that are so basic and grounded in our experience
Okay.
that they don't need any further justification.
So, like feeling pain.
Yes,
I don't need any other evidence to believe I'm in pain.
that's a perfect example
Yeah.
of a potentially immediately justified belief.
Okay.
And Siegel and Silins carefully highlight that immediacy means that some beliefs, not all beliefs,
Okay.
might be justified by experiences alone.
So it's not an all or nothing.
Right.
Some beliefs can be justified by experiences alone,
Yeah.
but not necessarily all of them.
Correct.
It's possible, but
Yeah.
not a given.
Right. And they contrast this immediacy with a stronger idea.
Okay.
Sufficiency for immediate justification.
Efficiency.
That idea implies that simply having an experience with a specific content
Okay.
would always automatically justify a belief about it.
So if every time I see something, I
Right.
would automatically be justified in believing it's real with no room for doubt.
That's the basic premise. And as you can imagine, there are some pretty strong challenges.
Yeah, I can
to that idea.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Tell me more about these challenges to immediate justification.
Okay.
What makes this concept so tricky?
Well, there are two major objections they bring up.
Okay.
The first is the easy justification objection.
Easy justification.
If immediacy is true, doesn't that make it way too easy to dismiss skepticism about the nature of reality?
I'm thinking of the brain in a vat thought experiment.
Exactly.
If all I have to do is look at my hand to know I'm not a brain in a vat,
Right.
doesn't that seem a little too simple?
The objection argues that our experiences alone can't resolve
Right.
those larger questions.
Like I'm letting myself off the hook too easy.
About the nature of reality.
Yeah.
Just seeing something doesn't necessarily prove it's real
Right.
in that bigger picture sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What's the second objection?
The second objection is the bootstrapping objection.
Bootstrap.
It questions whether we can use experiences to prove that experiences themselves are reliable.
That does sound kind of circular.
Exactly. It's a concern that this immediacy idea might lead to a circular justification.
Like, I know my eyes are reliable because they show me things,
Right.
and I know the things I see are real because my eyes are reliable.
Exactly of our beliefs, which ultimately undermines the whole argument.
Okay, so we've got these two ways experiences can justify beliefs, propositional and doxastic.
Right.
But then this concept of immediate justification runs into some pretty major roadblocks.
It does.
I'm curious, what do Siegel and Silins suggest as an alternative for understanding how experiences lead to beliefs
Right.
if simply seeing something isn't always enough?
They propose what they call the phenomenal approach.
The phenomenal approach.
Yeah.
That sounds intriguing. Tell
Yeah.
me more. What
Okay.
does that involve?
So the phenomenal approach suggests that experiences justify beliefs in part because of their phenomenal character.
Phenomenal character.
In other words, what it actually feels like to have those experiences. It's not just about the content of what we see, but also about the subjective quality of that experience.
So we're going beyond simply what you're seeing.
Yes.
And getting into how it feels to see it.
Yes.
The feeling of experiencing something rather than just the information itself.
Exactly.
Wow.
And to illustrate this, they bring up a really interesting comparison between sighted people and people with blind sight.
Blind sight.
Yes.
Isn't that where someone can technically see, but they're not consciously aware of it?
That's right. Someone with blind sight might be able to accurately detect objects,
Uh-huh.
but they lack the conscious visual experience that we associate with seeing.
So both a sighted person and a person with blind sight could, say, avoid obstacles in a room,
Right.
but only the sighted person would actually have the experience of seeing those obstacles.
Exactly.
Like one is relying on information they're not even aware of,
Right.
while the other is consciously navigating based on what they see.
And this distinction raises a fascinating question for the phenomenal approach.
Okay.
Does that difference in phenomenal character,
Uh-huh.
that conscious awareness of seeing,
Okay.
actually explain why the sighted person might have a stronger justification for believing there are obstacles in the room?
It seems like the person with blind sight knows the obstacles are there on some level,
Right.
but they can't really explain why they believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the sighted person can point to their visual experience as evidence.
Yes.
Like, I believe it because I saw it with my own eyes.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
The phenomenal approach suggests that there's something about the nature of conscious experience,
Okay.
the way it feels to us,
Okay.
that makes it so powerful in justifying our beliefs. It's not just information, it's
Oh,
a
yeah.
felt reality.
This is really making me think about how we form our beliefs about the world.
Yeah.
But how do we actually define this phenomenal character?
Right.
It seems like a slippery concept to pin down.
It is a complex idea.
Yeah.
Siegel and Silins highlight a key element of phenomenal character called phenomenal force.
Phenomenal force.
And this is a crucial element that distinguishes perception from other mental states.
So is this what separates actually seeing something
Yes.
from, say, just imagining it or wishing for it?
Exactly.
Okay.
Phenomenal force is the feeling that our experiences directly reveal the world to us. They're not just thoughts or fantasies.
Right.
They have a certain sense of realness, of out-there-ness,
Out there-ness.
that other mental states lack.
Okay, so when I see that jar of mustard in the fridge,
Right.
it's not just a thought bubble in my head.
Right.
It has that sense of this is really here,
Exactly.
that I'm experiencing this directly kind of feeling.
Yes.
That's the phenomenal force at play.
Precisely.
Mm.
And this force is similar to the way statements can have something called esoteric force.
Esoteric force.
It's the feeling that a statement is presenting something as definitively true.
Can you give me an example?
Sure. Think about the statement, "The sky's blue."
Right.
It's not just a random collection of words.
Right.
It carries a certain forcefulness,
Yeah.
a claim to truth.
Yeah.
That's its esoteric force.
So in a way, it's like our experiences have that same quality.
Yes.
A sense of presenting themselves as undeniably real.
Exactly.
Just like a forceful statement presents itself as true.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And this phenomenal force is what the authors believe gives our visual experiences that extra weight,
Okay.
that feeling of being directly connected to reality,
Okay.
which then influences our beliefs about the world.
Uh-huh.
It goes beyond simple information processing and adds a layer of subjective, felt reality to our perceptions.
This is all incredibly fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's making me question so much of what I thought I knew
Yeah,
about how we perceive the world.
it is fascinating.
But before we wrap up, I think it's important to acknowledge that Siegel and Silins are operating within some specific assumptions
Yes,
for the sake of their argument. We should probably touch on this before we go any further.
absolutely. They're assuming that visual experiences can, in fact, justify beliefs in the first place.
Okay.
They also assume that experiences and beliefs are distinct entities, as we discussed earlier,
Yeah.
and that experiences have specific content,
Yeah.
that they're about something in the world.
Right. So their whole discussion is built on these foundations.
Exactly.
It's not that these assumptions are universally accepted in philosophy,
Right.
but they provide the framework for this particular exploration.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's always important to keep in mind the underlying assumptions in any philosophical discussion,
Yeah.
because they shape how the argument unfolds and
Yeah.
what conclusions can be drawn.
This deep dive has been a mind-bending journey.
It has.
We've uncovered so much about how we perceive the world
Yes.
and how those perceptions form the basis of our beliefs.
Yeah,
We've gone from the simple act of seeing
right.
to questioning the very nature of reality.
It really highlights how deeply intertwined our sense of reality is with the nature of our experiences.
Yeah.
We rely on those experiences, on that phenomenal force, to form beliefs about the world around us.
And I'm sure you have some brilliant final thoughts for our listener to ponder as we wrap up this episode.
I think what's so fascinating is that the very act of seeing something turns out to be far more complex than we might initially realize.
Yeah.
It's not just about passively receiving visual information.
Right.
It's about how our minds actively create a conscious experience from that information. And it's that experience imbued with its phenomenal force that gives us a reason to trust our senses and
Right.
form beliefs about the world.
It's like we take that phrase, seeing is believing, for granted.
Right.
But there's a whole philosophical backstory as to why that is.
Exactly.
And it all comes down to the nature of our conscious experiences.
Yeah.
And this idea of phenomenal force. It makes me wonder, what would it actually take to shake our faith in our own eyes? What could
Right.
make us question
Yeah.
the reality we perceive so strongly?
That's a great question to consider.
Yeah.
If we accept that our experiences are the foundation of how we justify our beliefs,
Right.
then what happens when those experiences become unreliable or even deceptive? Think about dreams,
Okay.
hallucinations,
Yeah.
or even virtual reality. These all challenge our understanding of what it means to see something
Okay.
and to believe what we see.
So we're talking about situations where our senses are giving us information
Yes.
that isn't aligned with reality,
Right.
but it still feels real to us in the moment
Exactly.
because of that phenomenal force.
Because of that phenomenal force.
Yeah, that could really throw a wrench into things.
Precisely.
Mm.
It raises all sorts of questions about how we distinguish between genuine perceptions
Okay.
and those that are misleading, or even entirely fabricated by our own minds.
Yeah, it makes you wonder about the limits of perception
It does.
and the role of other factors like prior knowledge and reasoning
Right.
in shaping our beliefs about the world.
Exactly.
This deep dive has definitely given me a whole new appreciation for the complexity of perception.
I think so too.
It's not a passive process of simply absorbing information through our eyes.
Right.
It's an active engagement with the world,
Yeah.
shaped by our experiences, beliefs, and even the subjective feeling of those experiences.
And it's a journey of ongoing discovery.
Mm.
I encourage you, the listener, to continue exploring these ideas.
Yeah.
pay attention to your own experiences.
Don't quit.
Question your assumptions. What does it really mean to see something? And what would it take to make you question the reality you perceive?
Right.
Keep questioning.
Okay.
Keep exploring and keep diving deep into the fascinating world of perception.
That's a fantastic note to end on. I know I'm going to be looking at the world a little differently after this conversation.
Me too.
And to all of our listeners out there,
Yeah.
thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the philosophy of perception.